That's
good.
Yeah, we're ready, man.
You want to intro us here today?
All right, this is Ty and Chase with Lovestrong. We're out by the Snake River. Woohoo!
Yeah.
This is Ty's old stomping grounds, actually. So he's been giddy like a child all morning.
Oh man, yeah. Just as we were walking up here today, right out here behind me. One day I was out here fly fishing, and there was a mother moose that I didn't see until I was about 10 feet away. And then when I heard her stomp at me, and a baby stood up another 10 feet away from me, and she started chasing me. I actually started running out straight into the river to try to get away before she turned and left. And so my heart started pounding just coming through the woods today.
So thinking of the possibility of seeing that mom again.
I know, I was kind of looking forward to it, hoping I would, just because it was such a rush.
Yeah.
So,
Did you go under the water?
So I tried to run across the water, and I got like 3 steps in and face planted.
Graceful.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I had a buddy with me, and he was across the river. He said he just saw me come running out of the trees, and he thought like I was giving me some miracle worker, because I literally got 4 or 5 steps in before I actually fell. So
oh man,
I was so panicked. I was just freaked out,
Yeah, it's funny because I've remembered that story a lot of the time when I'm out by the river or by bodies of water, and for some reason I always envision myself tripping and a hoof just coming straight down on my back and just like stomping me. It's a fleeting moment. It comes and goes, but just it feels like a real thing that could happen. So. You were that close.
That's what it felt like. In fact, I'm surprised it didn't happen. So, yeah.
Dang. So we got up this morning and headed out from our place, Chelsea, my place, where we live in Idaho Falls, and came out, watched the sunrise up here by High C, up by the Hot Springs, up by Crest Creek, and this is a really, really beautiful area.
Yeah, this has been one of my favorite places. We used to live up here in Rexburg as well. We actually now live in Logan, Utah, but I used to come here all the time. This was kind of my place to come and have peace, where I was 30 minutes away from home, but I could come and get a couple of hours just to reset myself. And I think just walking through here today, it brought back all those feelings, and just thinking about how important it is that we take time to get away from the normal grind of life and find a place or a situation or something where we can find our own personal reset, where we can seek and find relaxation. I know in this particular place for me, I've frequently, when I was working for the drug courts of southeastern Idaho, I would frequently come here on the way home from work, or on a day off, just for an hour or two, just to let all of the stress go from the problems I was carrying around from my clients, and just see the value in making sure that we have a spot like that where we can do the reset.
Which I've heard some of the stories that you've shared about drug court and the heaviness of it. To be able to have a place that you can come and reset, I'm sure at that point in your life was critical, even just to find balance for that heaviness on the other side. Those stories, I remember a couple of them in particular where it kind of left me in almost like a hopeless funk. Hearing about the place that some of these other kids were in, to be able to come out here and remember, oh yeah, there is a God. Oh yeah, there is balance. Oh yeah, life is good. Life is actually still good. That is important, especially for when we're getting hit with the stresses of life, and they're coming whether or not we want them to.
Absolutely. In fact, even just coming up here today on Thursday, it's Saturday now, but Thursday I took Friday off to go to a field trip with my daughter, and on Thursday was the kind of week where the end of Thursday hit, and it felt like it should have been the end of a Friday, because I was just so spent. And then I went and did this field trip, and just knowing that I was coming up here to see you and come and do this, just the drive up alone was already starting to be recharging. But then walking through here, even when it was a little bit dark, and just seeing the trees and feeling the wind and hearing the water rush, there's something really powerful about the water to me that just sort of like, it almost just moves through me and takes all my anxiety with me. Just just seeing how important and the value in that to just my being able to be a tuned instrument, to use it the way that I need to and want to in other parts of my life. It becomes absolutely necessary for me to take something like this, the outdoors, do it for me and connect me to God, and really help me get back in touch with my purpose and my passion. Because I love my job, I love my work, even though I get weighed down by it sometimes. And I think it's just so important to make sure that I'm doing what I need to stay connected to my purpose and passion, so that I can be that person in the lives of other people that I want to be.
While you were talking about that, it actually kind of reminded me of the power of a space. So the place that you are physically in, the surrounding, the components that make up that environment. I work in an office environment. It is a good office, but it's an office. There are fluorescent light bulbs everywhere. The walls are as beige as they can be, and the carpet is that super thin. How do you even make that carpet? It's a very sterile type of environment, and for me, not having a window that I'm pressed up against, staring out to the wild blue yonder, it kills my soul a little bit sometimes. I come out here as well, and I find that same kind of reprieve, that refuge, that solace, and thinking what is it? What is it that is so good about this? It's the small things. There are so many small things that I'm taking in collectively, subconsciously, and just kind of storing as part of that experience. And so right now, even just let's describe a handful of them. The sound, what sounds are you hearing that are man, that sound is so nice?
I think it's just the kind of the rush of the water for me, just hearing that slow kind of dull roar, and then you mix that in with even the breeze that rolls through the trees and the sounds of the birds, and that all kind of comes together, and it's just you don't get that in a cubicleized life, right? You can't have that. I know we've talked about the idea of how awesome it would be to make our office space more like this instead of the cubicles that we all live in.
You mean when? I'm dead set on doing outdoor office. Well, I was a wandering therapist. That's gonna happen. You're gonna be the hippie in the woods, doing therapy with people. But you're right. And as you're speaking those things, I'm hearing them and kind of separating them individually. And it reminds me of, I was watching a Key and Peele video last night. It's so dumb, but hilarious, about Iron Man. And it's the two valets that are talking about Iron Man and how awesome Robert Downey Jr. is, and Val Kilmer. And anyway, there's one thing that they bring up is Sherlock Holmes, in this moment in a Sherlock Holmes movie with him, where he is seeing all of these very fraction of a second moments and digesting them, breaking them down, and making them a part of his equation of how he's going to either attack or respond to an attacker. And one scene in particular, it was hilarious. It had me rolling. Chelsea was dying laughing too, but I'm doing the same thing in my head right now, where I'm breaking down all of the individual things. So that sound, I can hear the wind deep in the trees, maybe half a mile, quarter of a mile away, and it is just a very subtle thing. It's so subtle. We've got the rushing water right up against the banks right here. That's a little bit more loud and pronounced. We've got, even when we're taking footsteps, we're in grasses right now, and dry grass. So as you're stepping, you hear just this hollow brushing, and it is so subtle. Again, a small thing, but the feeling of it, everything, what it produces in some, is amazing. That He can create this kind of space, and for some reason we connect with it.
Totally. And I think like all of those things coming together, it's not like we stop and pay attention to a single instance of one of those things until we sit and talk about it like this, but we take for granted that moment as we walk through here with all of that overloading us, and that's what sort of helps to flush things through and go, wow, this is an amazing experience. And how often do we not take the time to stop and pause and to break those things down and to notice all of those things, or to come and do something like this where when it all comes together, it does become refreshing and rejuvenating. And you can't really get that unless you're being intentional with going and finding a space or doing something that's going to allow you to intentionally sort of experience it. Otherwise, we just kind of stumble into it like a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. And,
I've never heard anyone say that in my life. But it seems like solid gold.
It is, and then so most of us live our 9 to 5, 40-hour or 60-hour, 80-hour work lives, and then if we're lucky, we go home and watch Netflix or do something and numb out. But we then have a weekend event or do something where we experience this amazing thing in nature. When in reality, we could have it at our fingertips all the time if we actually knew that we needed to intentionally seek it out and make some changes in the parts of our lives.
Yeah, that's stirring up another thought about the times. I'm thinking about the times in my life that I was intentional about seeking this out, and times in my life where I was the blind squirrel and I was like, oh, sweet a nut. where this manna? Oh, man. The times that I have felt most connected to myself, my calling, my purpose here in life is when I was seeking that out. I spent time watching lots of sunrises and was intentional about saying, I'm going to go out, I'm going to sit in the dark for an hour and watch this gradient of light pour in. And how good did that feel every day? That's, I think, where the practice of noticing and recognizing the beautifully small things came into my life. Am I great at that all the time? No, definitely not. Right now, I'm trying to break back into where I was 3-4 years ago. And when I do, though, like this morning, stepping out here, standing by the edge of the water, and having the moment before the sun, crossed over the precipice, it felt so good to just be silent for like 5 minutes and us not chat or think about anything other than what is. Like, it is so good to be in a good environment and to not have to force any thought, just to bask in and soak up the moment. And you're absolutely right. Seeking that out intentionally makes a big difference in our own personal feelings and well-being.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about coming to this spot so often. There was a quote that I heard once that said, many men go fishing never knowing it's fish they're not trying to catch. And that intentional idea of, I used to always come out here just to go fishing, which I still do because I love that, right? And it's like my passion, but I've always been chasing something else, which has been my sense of connection to God or a higher power, or sometimes even a connection to my own Father. And when I've come out here with those things in mind, it seems like God speaks to me through those things, whether that's a ripple in the water or a shape in a rock or, finding a shed antler that to me says God's winking at me because I've come with that intention of seeking Him and seeking to be close. It makes a difference in my connection.
Wow.
With that said, I don't know. I think we ought to go hit the river.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not out here to fish, I was telling Ty, the moment we put lapel mics on waders, it was like, this is unnatural.
Yeah, totally.
These two don't go together.
No.
I feel tethered. What the?
In a way, it almost feels like its own cubicle.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, all right. Later.
Thanks, guys.